Welcome to the Epiphysic Healing Addendum. In my very first video, I explained that I coined the word epiphysics to describe an overarching science which unites physics and metaphysics. A serendipitous consequence of that name is that it also helps to express the fact that an epiphysical understanding of the universe is a healing understanding. The word physic has two meanings. It means both a natural philosophy and a medicine. So epiphysics is an apiphysic, a philosophical medicine that helps us to heal holistically. The animation that was playing is my standard animation, slightly improved by a recent upgrade in my ability to harness the power of Blender. Said upgrade has enabled me to recreate my very first animation in improved form. Now the animation has changed to an Earth-centered one, and the orientation has changed so that the equatorial plane is emphasized. A red oval and triangle has been added. I have recreated this animation in order to explain something very important in a future video. The red triangle is the key to the link between astrology and physics, and thus to an epiphysical understanding of how the universe works at a fundamental level. For now, though, I just want to add a few things to what I said about healing in my last two videos. The first addendum I want to make is to emphasize the importance of properly observing our inner felt senses. In part 2 of this series, I explained why an understanding of the cycle of the elements is important for healing. We can understand healing even more deeply if we do so from the perspective of the cycle of the evolution of life. The cycle begins with a pure creative choice, which is then experienced in 12 stages. We are only going to concern ourselves with the first 2 stages here, because they outline a fork in the road of experience, one side of which leads to health, and the other to dis-ease. The first stage of coming to know our creative choices through experience is to explore them on a feeling level. This is done by making the feelings real in a material way so that we can engage with them through our senses. That always involves some form of artistic expression, even if we don't understand that it is art. In fact, we are expressing ourselves artistically all the time just by being who we are. Shakespeare was right. All the world is a stage, and the drama of our lives is art, even when it seems dull and mundane. In a more formal way, we can explore our creativity by creating works of art, or simply by choosing to experience the creations of others. For example, we might choose to go to an art gallery, a concert, or a play. This first stage corresponds to the essence of the sign Leo, and when it is completed, the baton is handed to the next stage. The second stage of the cycle corresponds to the sign Virgo, which is the sign most associated with health and healing. Understanding why that is so is key to a proper understanding of dis-ease and how to heal it. The essence of the sign Virgo is exactly that of the creations that we brought into our reality through the previous Leo stage of the cycle. It is the aspect of our material reality that encodes the feelings that we choose to explore. So the key question here is, how do we explore such materialized feelings? It is an important question because how well we explore said feelings determines our level of ease or dis-ease, and thus our health. The answer is that we use our discernment to turn the raw sensory data of the art into perceptions that then proceed to evoke the feelings in the third Libran stage of the cycle. In other words, we see the meaning that the art is conveying on a feeling level. That doesn't always mean seeing through our eyes, of course. We perceive the feelings evoked by music and food, etc., without using our eyes. The key is that paying attention to the sensory data without prejudice evokes a felt sense within us, if we allow ourselves to appreciate it. The purpose of our creations is always to point out truths which underpin a new, deeper understanding of life. The way they do that is to be something that highlights the limitations of our current understanding by going beyond its limits. There are two ways that we can respond to that. If we embrace our creations by perceiving them without prejudice, then they act as the signposts they are intended to be. They point to a mystery because they reveal that our understanding is not as complete as we might have thought it was. Seeing that as a good thing is a matter of real faith and wise folly. Real science is done by seeking out any holes in our understanding, and a real scientist is excited to discover one because solving the mystery means establishing a deeper understanding. If, on the other hand, one identifies with one's understanding and uses ideas about how clever it is to distract oneself from the pain of one's denied needs, then any inconvenient creation that points out a hole is seen as a threat. Such perceived threats are automatically assumed to reside somewhere on a scale of badness, which runs from simply being wrong to downright evil. The measure of perceived badness depends on how much repressed pain is evoked. Such misperceptions represent the kind of prejudice that turns our exciting mysteries into dark, sinister threats. Scorpio, the sign of mystery, is often blamed for such darkness, but it is really a lack of real Virgoan discernment that causes it, and all the dis-ease that results from it. What all this means for one's healing practice is that bringing our attention to the sensations that represent our felt senses is key. This is why using anything that resonates with the feeling is a helpful healing tool. One thing I forgot to mention in part 3 of this series is that I have found films to be a rich source of such tools. Any scene in a film that evokes uncomfortable emotions is a creation that can be used to spark a felt sense that can then be explored. Also, thoughts that bring one's attention to a felt sense can be helpful. That is why I ask myself questions about my felt senses. The natural response is to be more attentive in order to see the answer, which often works. The second addendum I want to make is to present an allegory I use to explain how ignorant misperceptions are the source of suffering and conflict. Imagine a chef who has never heard of or seen a lemon in his life. He has lots of experience of using oranges and is very proud of his various orange-based creations, but has begun to feel like exploring something new. In response to this creative desire, emanating from his soul purpose, serendipitous providence then causes the chef's fruitier to send him a box of lemons. I cannot say by mistake, but not with personal intent. When the chef receives the box, he takes a look at the lemons and doesn't like what he sees. He assumes they are some kind of unripe or otherwise substandard oranges and puts them on one side without making the effort to examine them, smell or taste them, thus failing to allow them to inspire new creative ideas. He intends to send them back with a rebuke to the fruitier, but later on serendipity steps in again with another non-accident. She causes a run on the chef's orange-based creations, and he is forced to use the lemons. Again, he is negligent in his appreciation of the lemons and treats them as if they were oranges without inspecting them. The result is that many of his customers send their dishes back saying that they are too sour. When he eventually tastes the dishes and properly examines the lemons, he doesn't see them in the proper light. He sees them as bad oranges and phones up the fruitier in a rage. This becomes the start of his war against these bad oranges, and the more he acts from his misperception and anger, the more suffering he causes himself. Eventually, though, he is humbled and comes to a realization of how he might use the lemons to create fabulous new dishes. This is, in effect, the way that we cause all our grief and suffering. The healing key is to learn to apply mercurial perception properly so that we can fully appreciate our serendipitous empowerment. That is all for now. Thank you for your attention.